I close my eyes. It's clear that something is being built around me. And these are very identifiable sounds. Early morning, you can tell this is the sound of something beginning. It's a sound that's going to call you to action. And most people have a relationship with sound which is very unconscious. It affects us, we're not aware of that. Some people find silence actually threatening. Some people find silence difficult to be with. I know people who live in big cities and they go to the country and it's really quiet and they feel intimidated. Behind, I can hear the voice of the city, like a distant murmur. Each city has its own voice. So this is an urban nature sound. It's a combination. And yet if you seek it out, even in a busy city like Amsterdam, there are places where you can find peace. Almost silence. Not real silence, but peace. And that's important. Just a few minutes of this a day, or even a few minutes of silence, even better, resets you, recalibrates you, and allows you to put sound in context. This right here is what I would describe as cacophony. Here comes the vehicle again. I could hear, before he started, at least 2 different sources of music, if not 3 different sources of music. You know, there's not a society on this planet that doesn't have music. Every tribe that's never been contacted, when contacted, has music. So music springs up independently everywhere there are human beings. To be human is to be musical. To be musical to a degree is to be quite human, although there are other species that use music or create it. But we do it far more than any other. And it's an essential part of people's lives. So it's the easiest way. Music is such a good and powerful conveyor of emotion. It's such a clear way of showing that sound affects our feelings, that most people understand how to use it intuitively. I'm a musician, and I think musicians do listen to the world in a different way to non-musicians. Because if you're playing in a band or an orchestra, you have to listen to several things all at the same time if you're going to play well. So you have this kind of multi-channel, very attentive listening, which connects you with sound in a more deep way than perhaps non-musicians. The research shows that musicians have slightly bigger brains than non-musicians, and certainly playing music is very good for your stress levels. So I always listened, and then it occurred to me that brands, companies were making most of the noise around us, like that plane. You know, it's made by a company. It's a business. And that they weren't thinking about the effect of the sound they were making. Most companies have a great big book about how they look, and they don't think about how they sound at all. So the mission really was to set up a business that would help the world to sound better by teaching companies and brands to make good sound, because good sound is good business. The research shows that people will habituate to noise if it's relatively constant. So if I worked in an office that was like this all the time, I would probably get used to it. What you can't habituate to is sudden spikes in noise. If it's quiet and then one person talks, nobody can habituate to that. It's impossible. So that's the noise that is really destructive for your productivity. Anything that takes cognition away is going to affect your productivity. Even listening to music. Those people over there who are listening on headphones are probably listening to music. Creative people love to have a stimulus, and in my experience, many creative teams like to have music playing because it's somebody else's creativity which prods their own creativity. That's great as long as they're not sitting next to a finance director or an accounts team who are trying to think and do numbers. So noise can help some people to stimulate them. That's great if it's the right sort of sound. On the other hand, one person's productive sound can very easily be the next door person's noise and distraction. If you look around you in this street, everything we see, apart from the trees perhaps, was designed. It's intentional. Somebody made it. It's supposed to look like that. This sound, nobody designed this. This is the byproduct of what's going on. It's like the exhaust gas of the engine. There's a couple of very traditional shops. There's a wine and liquor store, and over there's a beautiful old Dutch cheese store. I don't think you'll find pumping music coming out of those stores. Those are places which are probably almost reverentially, religiously quiet because they're selling something that they want people to pay attention to. What we've seen is that if you make the right sound in a retail setting, you can increase sales by 10%. Even some of the surveys have shown up to 38%. If you slow people down in an area where they're going very quickly, you can really increase sales that much. Now, most retailers will bite your arm off for 0.3% increase in sales, let alone 38%. So the stakes are very high. It's not rocket science, is it? Make a horrible noise, people leave. Create a lovely sound, people stay. It's that simple. The inside of a car is an unusual sonic environment because it's very enclosed and we have a lot of control over it. In fact, it's a factor when we choose a car, isn't it? The sound of a car door opening or closing, that's designed. That's not an accident. That's heavily engineered to sound like that. And even the switchgear, every piece of sound in here, people think about it very carefully. So again, this is a symphony that this time has been designed by human beings. And we consider this to be private space, a bit like a portable home. So somebody intruding on this space, I would resent that. Of course, I can let the outside world in if I want. That's pretty loud, so I think I'll just wind that back up and then we get peace again. The two most distracting sounds of all are somebody else talking that you don't want to listen to. We have no earlids. We have to listen. We're programmed to decode language. And the other one is ringing phones. Ringing phones demand to be answered, and it's a very distracting sound. We've got a wide range of experiences in here. Right now, that's babble. Easy to work with that. Hubbub, can't understand anybody. Just a nice background sound. Oh, somebody answer that phone. We need to make sure that buildings sound as good as they look, that they're fit for purpose acoustically as much as they are visually. This isn't just a problem for offices, of course. We could go to a hospital, we'd find the same thing. We could go to schools and we would find the same thing. So many of our buildings look great and simply don't work when you start to think about how they sound.
Verschillende sporthelden in actie komen. Max Verstappen, Steven Kruijswijk, Jury van Gelder en Kiki Bertens zijn net bijvoorbeeld op tegen de nummer 44 van de wereld op Roland Garros.
Because when I'm in here listening to a DJ speaking, he's speaking to me, isn't he? Not a million people, but just me. So it is very personal. And what's played, which I trust them to curate for me, which is where relationships with radio stations come about, where those brands come about, they're trusted guides. I trust them to curate music I'm going to like, and that's why I settle on a radio station that's going to give me something that brings me up, something that brings me down, something that feels like me. In the UK, there has been an initiative to deliver silently to supermarkets at 4 in the morning, because it's very cost effective to do that. And if you do that with noise like that and shouting, you wake everybody up and it's very unpopular. So instead of doing that, they've done what's called quiet delivery, which is quiet shoes, quiet trucks, quiet trolleys and so forth. Now that's nice. This, on the other hand, if you silenced it, I think you'd lose something here, wouldn't you? This is part of tradition. It's an important sound.